And welcome to the Grindhouse, a talk show about RPG gaming, comics, movies, and pop culture. My name is JayCee, your host. With me tonight, I have my co-host Pat O, GM Mike, because Mike, we have to give you a name, man, and Terry Mixon with us. So let's go around for introductions. Terry, since you're like upper left, why don't you go?
I'm Terry Mixon, a science fiction author. This is my cat, Leo.
All right, Leo. Does Leo have a? Do we need to give him a cool title too? Like
Yeah, you should go right on and give him a cool title.
all right. Below me on the left is Pat.
Hi, my name is Pat O'Sullivan. I am a podcaster and filmmaker, and you can find me on Twitter at Dr. X2112.
All right, and last is Mike.
Hi, my name is Mike. I am a game master, an avid gamer.
All right, and unfortunately, uh, Catherine could not be here with us tonight, but she'll be returning next week, and we will be picking up on well our Gygax challenge. So we're taking a little breather this week on the Gygax 75 challenge, but we will be talking about one of Gary Gygax's most prolific works, Dungeons and Dragons and Advanced Dungeons and Dragons First Edition. We're going to do a little comparison with later editions, talk about where you can find these editions and how much fun they are to play. After that, Pat will talk about our movie of the week, Level. But before we start, I want you to go ahead and, if you can, please subscribe and follow us on YouTube and Twitch. So on YouTube, so bring up our little thing here. Yep, there is where you can see us on YouTube. On Twitch is yay, that works. You can support us on Coffee, which I forgot to put the link into, but I will.
That's Buy Me a Coffee?
Actually, it is kind of a Patreon type thing called Coffee. It's actually in the show
Okay.
notes because one of our viewers, Greg, kind of said, "Hey, you should put these in your show notes." So, we will have them in our show notes. And if you are so kind, we do have a Patreon. Helps us keep the lights on, and not really, but hey, if we have extra money, we can upgrade mics. We can do all kinds of fun stuff, picnics and orgies or whatever.
Yeah, I want to see any podcast get that much money.
Oh, there are some. Believe me, there are some. All right, so let me. Now I just I need to get rid of this. There we go. Teleprompter. All right. So let's jump into our first topic. I'm going to go ahead
Still
and
got Pat covered by your Patreon thing. You may want to make that go away.
But, all right. No, it won't go away. There we are.
There it is. Gone.
I promise I'll learn how to do this stuff. All right. So we're actually going to go ahead and show a couple of commercials. So both of these are probably of really horrid film quality because where I got them from, someone probably recorded them on a VCR and then posted them on YouTube. But they give a good idea of the time frame. So the first one I'm going to show is from around 1984, and it's for TSR games. So you're going to see a lot of games, depending on how old you are, that you may or may not know existed. And then we're going to follow it up with a commercial for Dungeons and Dragons. That was probably, I think, more around, looking at the box, probably around 83, because I believe it's the Menser box set. But we will talk about more about editions and editors and all that fun stuff in a moment. But let's take a look at these to kind of start the conversation.
Challenge your imagination to come alive and to battle with the creatures of Dungeons and Dragons. Grapple against the forces of evil as a Marvel Comics superhero. Hunt adventure and glory as Indiana Jones. The all-new role-playing games of TSR and Dungeons and Dragons. Unleash the power of your imagination.
Has placed you in a dreadfully precarious position. You're playing the most phenomenal game ever created. Your skin grows cold from your first glimpse of the enormous beast. It's a product of your imagination. Survival depends on a quick, decisive move. Your choices are limited. Stand and fight, or run. Use your lightning bolt. master has placed you in a dreadfully precarious position.
All right, that was weird. All right, so maybe that didn't record as well. But anyway, a little bit of trivia there on the D&D one. The girl in the braids is actress Jamie Gertz. Like before she actually,
Oh, wow.
yeah. So that's a little bit of trivia. Another bit of trivia is with the Indiana Jones role-playing game, which we can't talk about, but for some reason they made a mistake in their layout, and they put a trademark next to the word Nazi.
Oh, no.
Oh, so
Yeah.
that's them. Okay.
Yeah, actually. So yeah, if you look at the materials in the cardboard character sheets and all the assets, anything, or even in the book, anything that says Nazi has a TM next to it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so a little bit of
Self-fulfilling prophecy.
Exactly. So D&D, and I'll kick this off, and please definitely jump in and tell me to shut up if I get a little too far into things. So D&D 1974, with the help of Dave Arneson, someone from Minnesota, another game designer, worked with Gary Gygax on the first iteration of what this would be. Initially, both Gary and Dave were very avid war gamers who conversed via letters at first and finally eventually meeting each other in person to discuss an idea about taking a war game and actually kind of romanticizing, in a sense, the squad leaders of the game, which would eventually become the player characters. Kind of sad, I think, afterwards. So Dave Arneson went on to create Blackmore, which if I think it's book 3 of the original books. But Advanced Dungeons and Dragons was actually created, well, one, for convention play, and two, so Gary could kind of wipe his hands of Dave Arneson's name on the game. So they kind of started collaborating together, and ultimately, as we started to see AD&D and later iterations of D&D, Dave Arneson was kind of erased from the game. And you actually do have two camps of fans. Some who are really avid Dave Arneson, I don't know, activists, I guess you want to call them, because they're kind of a little bitter and get nasty about things. But and then you have the Gary Gygax camp, which are most people for the most part. So yeah, 1974 it was released. It was a simple box set. I think that went for $10 in 1974, and now you can find it on like RPG auctions for like $1,500. I mean, really bad really bad sets in bad shape. eBay are still like going for $400 or $500. So it's something that definitely rose in price. Later on, we saw editions of basic D&D. So Dr. John Holmes, I believe it's John Holmes, not the porn star, but the
I was going to
editor.
say, I'm not sure that you're in the right genre with that.
Oh, JayCee always takes it there, doesn't he?
Oh yeah, hold on.
You need to see if the blurb
we don't
really
need props.
We don't need props. If the blurb is really
going
long, it belongs to John Holmes.
It is this edition of D&D. So this was 1979, I believe. But I want to get the name right, because if I'm basically crediting a very well-endowed porn star. No, Eric Holmes, sorry.
Oh, that's much different.
So that was all you.
Yeah,
transposing the two. Yeah, that was.
Would that be considered projecting? I don't know. But that set came out. It was pretty much a re-edit of the first edition. The white box, with some interesting rules, but we start to see a little bit more coherence. So I will say, have any of you actually played the white box? Any of the 3 original books?
No.
Nope.
I will say
I'm old, but I'm not that old.
Okay. Well, I'm not. Well, kind of that old, but not really. they're impossible to play. You actually, well, first of all, you need a copy of Chainmail to actually play the game at one point. Oh, we got chat, and I'm just ignoring chat here because my ego is so. We have we have a laugh, and then look how clean that kid's room is. So
That's my co-host of the Y2K Movies podcast, Daniel Thorndike, host himself of the Blue Room Inside podcast. And I made a comment on my podcast last week about how this is my podcasting studio. It's my 12-year-old kid's bedroom, and I make sure that he records it before I record, or I make sure he cleans the room before I record in here, as not to humiliate me in front of the internet. I have a quick question about Chainmail, though, if I can, real quick. Mm-hmm. I always tell people that the origin of Dungeons and Dragons is that Gary Gygax and company were avid miniature war reenactors, and that they came up with, instead of doing these like battles throughout history, they're like, oh, well, what if we did like Tolkien battles? And what would, we have stats for paratroopers, we have stats for medics, we have stats for infantrymen. Let's come up with stats for like wizards and orcs and elves and shit. And that's what Chainmail was. And they were kind of creating the character classes that would then become Dungeons and Dragons. Is that true, or am I lying to people?
No. I mean, you're correct.
Okay.
So both Arneson and Gygax were both Napoleonic, I believe, war gamers. And again, don't hold me to that. I'm sure people watching this, I'm going to get lots of fun things in either tonight's chat or when people eventually watch it. But and then ultimately, there's also something called the Bronstein too, which they run at GaryCon, I think, every year. And the Bronstein doesn't really have anything I don't believe it actually is steeped in Dungeons and Dragons, but it was basically the idea that Arneson and Gygax had, where you took your commanders from a miniatures army and you basically played them out in a scenario. And the Bronstein is kind of I guess proto D&D, if you want to put it that way, but they still run it at GaryCon usually every year. So, and it's something that if you're really interested in kind of seeing the super origins of D&D. But going back to that is, you needed a copy of Chainmail, and you also needed a copy of another book. I think it was put out by Avalon Hill. All right. I probably should have grabbed all these props beforehand, but it's fun pulling them out. So let's see here. Dedicated to the fantasy war gamers who enthusiastically played and expanded upon Chainmail. But there is something, basically the game that they suggest that you use with it is simply a hex map board game. I think it was called like Survival Outdoor Survival, I believe was the game. And it was actually like a board game that you would actually break out pieces of like hex map. And kind of how the whole hex map thing evolved is that they used this other game. So when you bought D&D the box set, you pretty much had to have Chainmail, and you needed to have this other thing in order to make it complete. And even then, reading the rules is kind of, so Mike, I will say that reading the rules for original D&D is like reading the rules for Shadowrun 6th edition. You're just kind of going, how the hell does this work? Where's the rules for this? But if you talk to some of the old luminaries like Tim Kask and them, they'll pretty much tell you that, without telling you, is that they just kind of made shit up. They're just like, all right, we have some base rules. We know that you roll this die. Frank Menser actually would, behind his screen, would have blank dice. And he would just like, people would kind of give what they do, and he'd pick up the blank dice and roll it. And it's like, oh, okay. And then he'd make up some ruling. So the original box set was definitely not very well statted out or written. But so going back to that first basic box set by Eric Holmes, not John, that one, which was also called the Blue Box, was kind of the first time that the original game kind of got an edit to the point where you can understand what was supposed to go on. However, that only lasted a couple of years. I think it was like 78 maybe to 81. And then Tom Mulvey and David Cook, I think it's Dave Cook, did what they now call BX, which is Basic and Expert. And that went on for a couple of years. It was a revision of the revision, but that one's a lot more popular. And there are some clone games like Old School Essentials that are based on it. And actually, to me, it's my favorite of the older versions of D&D. And then later on, Frank Menser, and I think in 1983, 1984, did what would become, I guess, the second to last edit, where you had BECME, which was Basic, Expert, Companion, Master, and Immortal. So it was 5 box sets that made up that version of it. And then later on, the 90s, Alan Allister, I can't even think of his name. People are going to correct the hell out of me on this one, but did the Rules Compendium, which was taking Frank Menser's 5 books minus the 5th one, Immortals, and creating this really wonderful tome that, honestly, if you have a copy of the Rules Compendium, or whatever I just called it, anyway, if you have a copy of that, that is like a one-stop shop. That has everything you're probably ever going to need to campaign into, because basic D&T also didn't stop at 20 like most modern games. I think it went to like 36th level or something ridiculous like that. And this is also a time when it was really hard to gain a level. I mean, honestly, you'd have to like murder, you'd have to pretty much cause genocide on an entire continent to basically go up to like 5th level at some point. It was just a lot of grinding. But so getting to 36th level would probably be something that either you would lie about, your game master would just over give you experience points, or you have been playing that long. So anyway, let's stop there on basic D&D, because I feel like I'm rambling here. So are there any questions, anything you want to add to what I just said?
I think that, casting my memory back into the mists of prehistory, I think it's the BX version that I picked up when I was in high school.
Let's see. I'm going to pull them off my shelf just so
I was looking at the covers online while you were talking, trying to figure out which of the sets that I learned on, and they looked closest to what my memory had it being.
So this is the BX. This is the Tom Mulvey set.
Can I see the books?
Yeah, that was the set that I started on.
Yep,
the covers of the individual books are going to tell me which one it was, and I'm pretty sure that it was that one.
Yeah, this one, well, if I take out the book, it is the same Errol Otis art.
Yep.
Yeah, that looks familiar to me.
Yeah, came with Keep on the Borderlands or Island of Adventure or whatever that was.
I got it with Keep on the Borderlands.
Okay. So that was that. And since I'm
and the special dice that you used a little crayon to go ahead and put some wax into the places so you could see what it was.
So the Eric Holmes one actually came with chits. It didn't come with dice. You actually it gave you these cardboard chits that you'd cut out and have to throw in a hat and wiggle around and pull a number out for a randomizer, because dice weren't as common. Well, at least polyhedral dice weren't common. I mean, everyone had D6s. You can go raid a Monopoly set and have D6s, but like D20s, and even then, the original D20 was pretty much basically a double-sided D. Well, it was a 20-sided die, but it was only labeled 0 to 1, or no, 0 to 10, I believe, and you actually were supposed to roll a D6 with it. And depending on what the D6 came up, that meant the die was either a 20 or like in the teens, or it was below. But anyway,
yeah, I don't have those dice anymore because my math teacher in high school confiscated them and then lost them.
That is the expert set. So that came after basic, and this is the cook expert set. And then lastly, because I don't have all of the BECME stuff, is that is the Frank Menser set. So this was kind of the last. I mean, I won't say last of the box sets, because when Wizards of the Coast took it over, they did something called the Black Box, which was kind of interesting. It came with a bunch of cool stuff, but by that time it was pretty watered down, and that's kind of where the rules compendium kind of came from. And I don't know if I can reach. Oh yeah, I can. Oh, Rules Cyclopedia. That's what I was trying to say. Ugh. So this here is the D&D tome that pretty much contains a lot of things, and I just want to get the author's name correctly, because he passed away, I want to say about 5 or 6 years ago. He also did other stuff, but Aaron Alston. There it is.
Yeah, I knew him.
Oh, really?
I did. We were on the same bulletin board in Austin in the 90s. I can't remember now what the name of the bulletin board is, Red something or another. And he's an author like I am. And I took a course from him at DragonCon in 2010 with him and another author that were doing it. So it's kind of weird that I knew who it was, but I do know him.
Yeah, no, he was the one who pretty much kind of did the last major edit to D&D. Now, again, Gygax was gone by this point. So around the time of second edition, Lorraine Williams had taken over control of the company and pretty much outed Gary from everything. I mean, there was a time there he couldn't even use his own name on products. So, and Gary went on to do a couple of interesting things. So, interesting in the way that, yeah, they were interesting and kind of sucked all at the same time, was Cyborg Commando. So I don't know if anyone remembers Cyborg Commando. Wow, I'm feeling ancient here. Do I have a copy of that on my shelf anywhere? Looking. I must have it in storage. But Gary Gygax and Frank Menser were on that, and let me see if I can find a picture, and I'll screen share this, because this is the artwork alone makes you go, "What the hell?" I didn't expect to talk about Cyborg Commando, or else I would have brought up the picture for it. Let's see here. Is there a... Oh yeah, Wikipedia. Wikipedia gave me a really crappy... Oh, no, that doesn't get bigger. All right, hold on. If I can't find it quickly, I will move on. But maybe Board Game Geek has a better image of it. All right, perfect. So I'm just going to share my screen here. And window, here we go. So that's Cyborg Commando. Kim Mohan was on that too. Interesting. Kim just, I believe, passed away not too recently either. Very recently. But anyway, yes, it is the science fiction role-playing game about, well, cyborg commandos in a post-apocalyptic Earth. I mean, look at this. He's shooting a giant cockroach over here, and
like those spaceships.
Yeah, don't they look like M&M cookies? They do.
Legions.
Oh man, M&M cookies, and there's a skeleton down here. But anyway, yeah, poor Gary, after Lorraine basically just told him, I mean, just took everything from him, really. Really, I mean, he did a couple of things, but nothing really huge. And then he started to do some more work before he passed away. But a lot of it just got held up in his, I'll just call it, he got held up in probate, and some things that went on. But so going back to I think most of you have played AD&D, right? First edition?
Yes, I have.
Okay. So again, AD&D was done for a couple of reasons. One is there was a lot of convention play going on in the late 70s. So like, if, for example, the Giants module, Against the Giants. Was it Steadying of the Hill Giant? I'm just mispronouncing all of these today. Anyway, that one was actually like one of the original convention modules, which is really weird when you read it, because you're sitting there going, how the heck can this be ran at a convention? It's just a lot. If you're trying to do this in 4 or 5 hours, you're not going to get through much. But the whole point is, if you actually look in the original module in the back, there's actually a chart that shows how long you've lasted, what you've done, and then you get these convention points. And then whoever gets the most the points at the end of the module, wins the day or whatever you want. But it was done for convention play, and then ultimately also too, because it had the advanced in there, they can completely take Dave Arneson out of the picture, because Dave Arneson was only on Dungeons and Dragons, not advanced. So, but
I went ahead and did a quick search, and the bulletin board I was on was called Red October.
That was a board game TSR did.
It was also a bulletin board that you dialed into in the 90s.
Oh, I remember those.
Back before the good old days of having the internet, when you had to call in.
So I'll go around. So I just because I feel like I'm speaking too much here. So Pat, do you have any memories, fond memories, bad memories, or just anything you want to say about Advanced Dungeons and Dragons First Edition?
It's funny that you bring it up that those modules were designed for convention play, because I thought the same thing. I've gone through, and this is all before my time, but I've picked up some of them on Drive-Thru RPG, and so I have had a chance to look through them and read them and stuff. And I always thought the same thing too when I'm looking at them, like, how the hell would you do this at a convention? That's like ridiculous to me. But when I go to conventions, I play a lot of First Edition Dungeons and Dragons. It's basically the only place that I play it, because I'm not as old as you guys, so that's all my experience with AD&D has been through conventions. So I guess it does kind of make sense, But as being a player that started much later, I find I'm not intimidated by the transition backwards. I think that the rules are obviously a little bit more complicated, and it's a slightly different way of doing things. But the biggest hang up I have, I think, is just with the character classes being different. That's the only thing that I think gets lost in the backwards translation.
So how so? I'm curious.
Well, there's not like the illusionist, right? That's like a character class that was there back in the day that's not there anymore. So it's like there's a lot of multi-classing. You don't get as much multi-classing with 5th edition. I don't know. That's it. Whenever I've done First Edition games, I've always gotten thrown wonky characters. The fighters don't have as many feats and stuff. Yeah.
All right, fair enough. Yeah, the classes were interesting, very unbalanced. But I'll talk about Unearthed Arcana in a moment. Speaking of unbalanced, it was a little awkward. There was also the one thing that kind of always bugged me about AD&D is that you couldn't particularly play the game with just the player's handbook. Like, realistically, even to play the game as a player, because your saving throws, your combat matrix, everything that you would need to know and play were in the DMG. So I don't know if it was in design, like by design, so players just had a character and the game master did all that work, which I kind of think that might have been the case. But that would drive me crazy if I had actually managed the combat and everything for, a part. And back then it wasn't like, oh, this was designed for 4 players. Back then you'd have tables of 8, 12, multiple people. So.
And I don't have any of the core books. I guess at this point I should just get a reprint just to have and read through. And I'll just ask the person next to me at conventions, like, how do I do this? Or what am I supposed to do here? And I can kind of fill in the blanks. I think that if you're used to gaming, it's not that different. The biggest challenge is I know it's not Thaco, but that whole thing.
Yeah, using a combat matrix and all that. I was actually trying to see here if I have a. Oh yeah, there we are. Hold on. Let me. I'm gonna go ahead and screen share here, and share screen. I'm gonna. Don't show me this warning again because I hate this warning because it's like, yeah, I know. It's not like I'm sharing government secrets or something. All right. So here is the original cover. There's actually two covers. The one after this was the orange spine that had the wizard on it. But oh yeah, nope. Dungeon Master screens. Oh god, those were a mess within themselves. But so, kind of cool artwork for the time. And we're talking about characters, so let's just kind of go over here. I mean, the Dungeon Master's Guide has the most looks like, a fifth grader drew some of the artwork in there, but there was things that you don't see in modern gaming. So, strength went up to 18. You had a percentile on your strength. You just didn't have 18. And people would lie their asses off on what they got on their percentile or getting an 18 when going there. Intelligence, affected languages, spellcasters. Spellcasters didn't just get these spell slots that magically came out of nowhere. They actually had to make percentile rolls to see if they know a spell. So it's like, ooh, I want Fireball. If you flub that roll, you'll probably never ever see Fireball unless you get it in the scroll. And even then, there was rules to figure that out.
Allow me to assure you that Fireball scrolls are dangerous because when I picked up the basic and expert rules, I picked it up with a friend in high school. Neither one of us had any role-playing experience whatsoever. So we were just trying to figure out what the heck we were supposed to do. And in playing the caves, the Keep on the Borderland, we found a scroll of Fireball in one of the caves. And my friend used it to start a fire and basically killed us both, roasted us in place because it was this little teeny thing there. So that's my fun story for basic and expert.
Yeah, no, and yeah, I mean, it's also dangerous till you died. There wasn't this I'll make my death save. No, it was like you died.
Yep, you're gone.
Thank you for playing. Even charisma, it determined how many henchmen would actually follow you and what their loyalty would be. So I think, lower on the lower levels here, you might have two henchmen that might follow you, but their loyalty is going to suck and they're probably going to want more money from you.
It's Bob and Doug McKenzie.
Absolutely. Also too, there was racial stock, things where races hated each other. Dwarves and elves did not like you. There's animosity between them. Also, demi-humans, as they were called, couldn't go up past certain levels. Humans could go unlimited. Humans till the cows come home. If you're an elf, you might get to 9th level being a thief. So these are the races here, which were pretty simple. Elves, gnomes, humans, half elves, half orcs, and halflings. Oh, there's that classic picture of I don't know what's up with the half orc. That is an expression. I don't know, but anyway, going back into it. So you had your classes, your experience points, and they just kept going. There was really no cap. Here it just shows 11th level, but then it just says you need 225,000 experience points per level for additional level beyond the 11th. And here it actually gives you spells up to level 29. Druids were okay. Fighters, I mean, the coolest thing you could do as a fighter was at 9th level, you could build a castle. But that's if you had the money and if you could attract people to come to your castle. And this is a classic here too. A Paladin in Hell is the name of this picture. But anyway, I kind of, again, going on down the nostalgia road here. Mike, I want to give you a chance to speak because I know that you've done a lot of AD&D and just kind of get your idea on experiences.
Yeah, I mean, I always I remember it quite fondly. I pretty much everything you said so far rings true. It was I don't want to say it was impossible to level your character, but it took a very, very long time. And it really, I mean, when you did finally level, if you played by the rules, it was really an achievement. It was really something that everyone was like, wow, that's really cool. At the time, I was really fascinated with monks. And as the monks got higher in levels, you actually had to defeat, there was like only one like Grandmaster of Storms,
Yes.
Grandmaster of Flowers, I forget the name. But in order to advance in level, you actually had to defeat the existing Master of Flowers or whatever, Master of Wind. And if you didn't defeat him, you couldn't advance. You couldn't advance in level. You were stuck at that level. And your only option was to try and go back and try and fight him again, like the boss in the video game. It was fun. It was a lot of fun. We ended up my brother and I ended up playing with a bunch of neighbors. It was interesting. It was definitely has come a long way and was a lot more lethal, but a lot more rewarding, I guess, at the same time.
So yes, it was the Grandmaster Flowers. It was 17th level,
Yep.
and you needed 3,250,001 experience points to get there. How 3 million?
That's a lot of goblins, buddy.
It was a pie in the sky. I don't think any character I ever had made it past like 3rd or 4th level. So to actually try and think I was ever going to get to 17th level was purely dreaming.
Yeah.
When I started playing Advanced Dungeons or the first edition stuff, I was in the Army at the time, and we would show up at the rec center Friday night and then play all day Saturday and all day Sunday. And it was just this madhouse affair of you didn't know how many people were going to be sitting at that table and playing, but it wasn't going to be 4. It was going to be 12. It was going to be 16 people. And one of the things you learned as a game master in that environment is everything was made up as you went along. Where's the party going to go? Not where you choose for them to go. They're going to go where they want to go, and they're going to do what they want to do. And you've got to adjust the number of monsters on the fly, maybe throw in a second tranche of monsters if they're having too easy of a time of it. It was nothing but chaos. I loved it.
No, it was fun. And Mike, I just want to read one more one more paragraph. There can only be a limited number of monks above 7th level.
There you go.
Superior Master. There are 3 8th level Master of Dragons, but only 1 of each higher level. When a character monk gains sufficient experience to qualify him or her for 8th level, the consumerate abilities are obtained only temporarily. The monk must find and defeat in single combat, hand-to-hand, without weapons or magic items, one of the 8th level monks, the white, the green, or the red. And the same must be done for 9th level or higher. So, yeah, I mean, at 7th level or 8th level, you now had to, search the world for this other 8th level monk and kick his ass. Right. And then once you reach 9th level, you have to find that one monk who's 9th level, which is a really weird thing that there can only be one. It's very Highlander.
That's kind of an awesome mechanic. I really like that. I think that's worth stealing and doing again.
What happens to the one you defeat? Does he go down a level?
Yeah, he definitely. Let's see here. Comets lose enough experience point to place him or her at the lowest level possible to obtain the level. So ultimately, the monk you defeat is going to come and find you and try to kick your ass again.
That's so awesome. That's such a good like a character flair, I guess. You know what I mean?
It's like the medieval WWE.
Yeah.
But yeah, and you had multi-class, you had dual class, and then you had the dreaded psionics. but I definitely want to move us on a little bit here. So just quickly, Terry, did you have anything you wanted to share about AD&D?
I have incredibly fond memories of playing that it was between 83 and 88. And I must have game mastered or played 10,000 hours during that time. It was just unimaginable the amount of gaming we did.
Yeah, but it was fun, and when you're younger too, and you don't have commitments such as work and kids and other things like that, you have all the time in the world to do this stuff. But D&D,
the skills I learned is that have made me the science fiction author I am today, because I can directly take all of that improvisation and making characters into my writing career. It's what formed a foundation for me.
That is very cool. Yeah. TSR also did other games going on. So we saw the infamous Indiana Jones game where, let me see, hold on. I feel like I'm emptying my shelf right now. So here's the
Here is my secret stone from Indiana Jones.
But I want to see if I can find one of the character cards that shows Nazi with the trademark on it, because oh, look, an original die that you had to put crayon on. Oh, and there's another one. Oh, and there's the crayon.
Mm-hmm.
It came with its own crayon.
It did.
Let's see if
My dice were ugly green.
One of the things about this game too is that you could only play the licensed characters. So you could play indie, short round, and other characters, but you couldn't particularly play your own made up character. There were no rules for that. And I got all the various modules in here. Let's see if it was in how to play the game. I just want to see if I can find it really quick, because I think it's particularly laughable that let's see here. Interested parties, dealing in the dark. So this obviously was done after Temple of Doom, if you had short round in it, and what's her face? Yeah, Goon. This is based on. Yeah, this is not giving me the thing, but anyway, there was a hold on. Is that on the back of this one? Maybe. No, I think at least gave you maps, and that was kind of a cool thing. Oh wait, maybe this is it here. That's Willie and. No, natives. Anyway, in one of these books lies. Oh, maybe it's in the accessory pack.
I can't believe it. You're searching through an Indiana Jones Jones box, and you can't find a Nazi anywhere.
Nice.
I know, they should be everywhere.
So here's a little trivia that I know about the game. From what I remember, and this is going back a while because this game came out in the mid '80s.
Yeah.
What I remember though is that this Indiana Jones didn't do as well as TSR had hoped it was going to do. So unfortunately, they stopped production of the game. So, and all unsold copies, I think, were tossed in a landfill or something along those lines. But anyway, the point I'm trying to make is that the Indiana Jones role-playing game is actually pretty rare. It's rare to find a complete set, and even rarer to find the box and all the items inside it. So
yeah, I even have the module that has the magic viewer.
Wow.
Yeah. So these are my little treasures. I wish I could find that, but anyway, yes, believe me, I will reference it and put it in the show notes if I can, just so we're not stuck on that. But anyway, then other games they came out with were Top Secret for if you want to play espionage, Star Frontiers, if you're kind of in the space thing. I love Star Frontiers, and it had the most broken, horrible system ever, but it was actually a really fun game to play.
Top Secret was fun.
Yeah, no, Top Secret is really fun, and just kind of a little bit of a call out. The company I'm currently a partner with, Solarian Games, who's actually was TSR for a while, when we took the trademark to do Gygax magazine back in 2013. We actually published with Merle Rasmussen Top Secret New World Order, which now is actually just Top Secret because we now have the trademark for Top Secret. So.
What about Boot Hill?
Oh yeah, Boot Hill.
Yeah.
There was 3 editions of that. Each of them at least getting a little better as you went along. The first one was more of a war game. Well, first 2 were more of a war game, and then the third one had RP like role playing game elements to it. But yeah, I totally forgot about it. Boot Hill's an early one too. That's actually very early TSR. I'm just kind of keeping to the like early TSR stuff because, like I said, second edition had a lot of stuff. Oh, yep. One of our Dana, who is watching us right now, brings up Arcane magazine out of the UK. I don't know if anyone remembers Arcane, but Arcane was a very interesting magazine. It was more of a '90s magazine than anything, but it kind of took it. Because originally Dragon magazine was neat because you could find stuff for Warhammer, for all the gay RPGs out there, and then suddenly it became like just a mouthpiece for TSR. Ooh, oh, is that the? Oh, that's
250 issues on CD.
Wow. Yeah. Second edition also came out with a disc set for the game itself, which was really clunky and doesn't run. And but it was a neat idea for the time in a digital.
These are all PDFs, thank goodness, because if I ever need to find anything, if it was any strange format, I wouldn't be able to do anything.
Yeah. All right. So I think we're kind of Gygaxed out. But anyway, one of the reasons I wanted to bring it up tonight was just that we are doing the Gygax 75 challenge, for those of you who have watched the previous episodes. And it's basically taking an article Gary wrote in 1975 in Europa magazine talking about world building. And the challenge takes it week by week, 5 weeks. And each part of it builds out a various part of that article. So next week we'll be back with everybody, and we will be going into week 3, which is the dungeon portion, which definitely will be fun. But now it is time to show cheesy bumpers again. So here we go. All right, and it's over to you, Pat.
Awesome. So this week I wanted to take a look at the 2021 documentary Level. It's billed as the first flat Earth documentary that covers the basic understanding of our true cosmology and the heavy censorship involved on discovering this truth. Written and directed by Chicago filmmaker Sean Hibbler. Now, I did not know this man. And I only found out that we were both from Chicago after I watched the documentary and started preparing for my review during tonight's stream. I swear I had no idea that this dude was from the same city as me. And as soon as I found out, if I was wearing a beanie, it would have levitated off my head and spun around a couple times. So Level, 2021's Level is the first movie in what's now considered the Level trilogy. It was followed up by 2022's The Next Level and 2023's Level with Me. Sean Hibbler also served as an editor on documentaries about George Floyd and, go figure, COVID-19. The internet claims this movie is available on Tubi. Now, if you're not familiar with the Tubi app, please make yourself acquainted and check that one out. It's got a shit ton of really great genre movies. And while there are commercials, it's a free app, and the movies do appear unedited. So if you haven't checked out Tubi yet, please do that. But that's neither here nor there, because when you Google the movie Level, the internet claims that it's available on Tubi, but it's not actually. I don't know what that's about. It is, however, available for free on YouTube, much like this very stream. So I guess you could consider us channel mates.
All right.
The movie, I'm sorry, what?
I was just going to say, I also have the trailer geared up. So when
You can do that now if you want.
All right, cool. So let's take a look at this.
What about the people in Australia? You know, they're standing on the bottom of the globe, won't they fall off? And your teacher says, no, gravity. And you go, oh, okay. And you never go back to that question. But when you go back to it as an adult and start looking at it with a critical eye, the whole thing falls apart. It just doesn't make sense. I was into science. You know, I was just a normal bloke, just doing what everyone else does. But then you start seeing things that are wrong.
Many times we can see time-lapse footage of the sun that shows it getting smaller as it moves away from us. That's not always the case, since the sun is travelling around the North Pole. The closer you are to the north, the less you'll see the size change. But from locations beyond the equator, you'll absolutely see the sun's size change. And that could never ever happen if the sun was 93 million miles away.
There's indoctrination right there. And rather than just ignoring them, you know, thinking, oh, I must be stupid, I thought I'd actually look into them and see what I can find out about them. And once you do that, that's the turning point.
Level.
All right. So, as I was saying, the film is narrated by Eric Dubay, who is a prominent figure in the Flat Earth community. He's author of The Flat Earth Conspiracy and 200 Proofs Earth is Not a Spinning Ball. Most notably, though, Neil deGrasse Tyson forfeited his February 2018 debate with Eric Dubay that was originally scheduled for the Joe Rogan podcast. deGrasse claimed that he didn't want to platform Dubay by agreeing to the debate or give any attention to the Flat Earth movement. And of course, in the Flat Earth community, this only was taken as proof positive that the Earth is not round. So what is Flat Earth theory and why does this documentary deserve mention on this live stream? Well, Flat Earth theory is a joke to most people, with heavy emphasis on most, because obviously there is a subsection of dedicated believers that do not accept the heliocentric model of the universe. In fact, they find the very theory such a thing affronts of God. There's a fair amount of creationism in their beliefs, and their language employs their own buzzwords. They consider themselves to be truth seekers, and their geocentric beliefs are considered to be the ultimate truth. Followers describe their acceptance of flat Earth theory as their awakening, and every truth seeker has their own awakening story. It's a little cultish, but the fun stuff always is, right? At the core of their beliefs is a lot of science that I'm not going to debate because, frankly, I don't know enough about astrophysics to do so. Neil deGrasse Tyson apparently does, but as we mentioned earlier, he backed out of the Flat Earth debate on the Joe Rogan podcast in 2018, but I'm sure that's neither here nor there. Watch the documentary yourself and pick apart their scientific arguments if you feel so inclined. As an armchair conspiracy theorist, the one thing I can't speak to is their healthy distrust of NASA, seeing how the agency was born off the backs of folks like Jack Parsons, OTO occultist and friend of Aleister Crowley and L. Ron Hubbard, and Werner von Braun, who was a former Nazi and member of the SS that was brought over to the States under Operation Paperclip. Not saying that that means the Earth is flat, but it's little known facts like that that entice their audience into distrusting the popular model of the universe. So why does this documentary deserve an hour of your time? Because I find mental illness to be the ultimate form of entertainment. No, because as I stated in the opening, I co-host a weekly podcast about conspiracies, paranormal topics, and the occult. I have listened to grown men vehemently argue about whether or not Bigfoot is the ghost of caveman. I think at its heart, I'm still a 17-year-old sitting around a garage with his buddies, smoking a joint, listening to the Doors, and going around in a circle while everyone tries to come up with an explanation as to what's really going on. Because while I may not entirely agree with Flat Earthers' explanation of reality, I admire their suspicion and distrust. So I'm a big believer of not deplatforming people if you don't agree with them. I think that that's kind of the worst thing that you can do. I think if you give people enough rope, they'll hang themselves. And as ridiculous as some of this stuff is to some people, I could think of worse ways to spend an hour of my time. So I do recommend, if you have an hour to kill, to go on YouTube, watch Level 2021. I haven't watched the whole trilogy. And now that I found out that this dude's from Chicago, I might actually make an effort to do so. So that's what I got for this week.
All right. I feel like I need to throw something in here right away.
No, I know. That's what I was going to say, Mr.
I've got to throw this in right away. I worked for NASA for 16 years.
Oh, my God. You're one of them.
I worked in
this is a setup for JayCee. JayCee,
this is a big old setup right here. I'm the guy that's been waiting the entire time for you to bring this up.
This is fucking awesome. You got to come on my other show. All right, no, please do this. Do this.
But I worked for NASA in the Mission Control Center for 16 years, and I told people that I worked for the department that faked the moon landing.
Awesome.
In truth, I was an IT guy. I was one of the IT guys in the Mission Control Center. But there you go. Fair warning, I am the enemy.
I do not take you as the enemy, but that's interesting that's how you would introduce yourself. Would you like to extrapolate on that a little bit, or no? That's
maybe in the enemy of the documentary. I don't know. I never actually, have set out to go ahead and be against flat earthers. I've never really given it a whole lot of thought.
Sure. Okay.
Was that ever mentioned around NASA? Like, just were there people who
flat earthers? No. Yeah. Although I did run into a coworker that believed that the Earth was only 10,000 years old.
Right. That's flat Earth is an extension of creationism. There's a lot of that in there because they take. I'm not going to go through it, but the firmament is supposed to be the separation of the land and the sea and all that shit. That's interesting. So, I guess my question would be, I don't know really what I want to ask you because there's a lot. So, okay, how about this? How come we haven't been back to the moon?
That is a great question, isn't it?
Yeah, how do we not have the technology that we had back in the fucking 60s and we don't have it anymore?
Because
how do we spend $3 billion? But how does Elon Musk spend $3 billion on a rocket that blows up fucking, halfway to the stratosphere? And 50 years ago, 60 years ago, we were able to do so much more with so much less.
When I worked at NASA from 98 to 2014, you would be surprised at how archaic the technology they were using back then was. It's doing things for tomorrow with yesterday's technology. You were still using a lot of technology that wasn't the 60s, but it was darn close.
But the technology back then accomplished more than what we can do now. So it's not about. I get the fact that we haven't moved on. If we're not progressing, we're at whatever rate. We don't need to progress. We just need to be where we were back in 1969.
The bottom line is lack of will. There was a lack of will to make it happen, and they just decided not to do it. Boiled down, that's what it was.
So we haven't been back because we don't want to go back.
Somebody didn't want to go back. That's a different conspiracy theory.
Somebody why we didn't want to go back.
Didn't want to go back.
Was it the space race? And once we won the space race, then that was it. It was like, okay, we won. No need to go back.
If you go outside the Johnson Space Center or the one in Florida, Cape Canaveral, you'll see that there is a Saturn V rocket at each place. Those were the two final Saturn Vs that were built. They were not used, even though they were fully constructed, simply because Congress did not allocate fuel for them to be used. They basically just threw them away.
So this comes down to government funding. Is that? Huh.
In many ways, yes.
Huh. Interesting.
So then the fact that we kind of drag space exploration out from time to time, is it a distraction? Because if we're never going to fund it, then we can't do it. And we have to know by now what the bill is for this shit, right? We can't
I would tell you about the secret bases on the moon, but then they might lock my head in the safe.
Right. This is when it all gets come out, when it all comes out on JayCee's D&D like live stream is when the lid gets blown off everything. No, I mean I don't, like I said, the arguments they bring up, like I'm sure as you well know who the four bearers of that organization were, like, there's stuff like that. There was stuff like the fact that we haven't gone back and we don't have the technology, we don't have the funding, but we still put money into NASA. A lot of what some of the flat earth claims is that it's kind of like a money laundering operation at this point, is that we put money in NASA without getting any results, and that's money that could go towards social services or whatever, rehabilitation programs, feeding the hungry or repairing our infrastructure and shit like that. Why do we dump anything into NASA if we're not going to go the full Monty and actually explore space?
You shouldn't trust the government to dump money into anything and actually have it work, because even when you look at social services, when they dump a lot of money into it, almost all of it goes to waste. Anything the government touches is waste.
I work in the public sector. I work in the public sector in the third largest city in the United States, so I know exactly what you're talking about. Nothing works when you get too many people involved and you get too big, which is a different conversation for a different time.
That's a completely different conversation. But yeah, I'd be happy to come and talk. I'm not sure how good of an arguer I would be against the flat Earth theory.
I'm not trying to argue with any. I want to hear people talk. Like I said, I'm still in that mindset of sitting in the garage and smoking a joint, just being like, let people fucking say their piece. It's why I honestly do recommend this documentary, because there's a lot of people that think the Earth is flat. And not a lot, but a sizable amount. And I mean, we could sit here and laugh at them and dog at them all we want. Or you can hand them the mic, give them the conch shell, man. Let them say their fucking piece, and then just take it from there.
I don't know if you can see this here, but I'm gonna change my camera facing. I have a souvenir on my wall.
Nice. I don't see any globes in this room, though.
There are no globes in this room.
He knows what's up. He's like, I ain't fucking keeping that shit in my house.
All right. Well,
this was not a plan. I had no idea you worked for NASA. I honestly put up a Twitter poll. It was between this and Evil Dead Rise. And it was neck and neck. And I just went with this one. I had no idea you worked for NASA, dude. He did not put me up to this. I swear to God.
That's what you say now. But James, look at that smile on his face. He looks guilty.
That's funny.
That's awesome, dude.
All right. So I was just about to say, yeah, I'm just happy we're not a monetized channel yet, because the F-bombs would have definitely brought us into non-monetized territory. But since I'm not monetized, I can say we can say whatever we want to.
I wouldn't mention Flat Earth in the description, or else the video might get taken down anyway, because they do that, I guess.
Yeah, that's a whole, again, going into whole other arguments here, is that YouTube is so authoritarian when it comes to, like, well, I probably shouldn't say that out loud, when it comes to content. Like, they will tear you down for just the littlest thing that you're kind of going, wait, that really wasn't anything. Why is it, so because there's a lot of people who actually are monetized and make big money, and they'll just sit there and go, well, I'm not making money for this one because I said this word, or because which is really strange. And a lot of people go to more of those I don't want to call them nut job YouTubes. Oh god, I can't think. Like a lot of right wingers go to I can't think of the name of it, but it's kind of like the anti YouTube. I don't know how many people go there, but anyway, it's
Vimeo.
No, it's not Vimeo.
I don't know this anti-YouTube of which we speak.
Yeah, it's a lot of the people like Salty Cracker go there, and Tim Pool, and
I totally need to know who Salty Cracker is. Who the hell is that?
He's co-host of Icky Cookies.
I am showing my age now. I'm like, yeah, that all means nothing to me.
Or Odin's Men, or any of those guys. They all go to this one website where it's kind of more of a free speech platform. But anyway, it's like, because they go on YouTube and then YouTube basically just demonetizes them or just takes them off the air, and then they
Rumble.
have to Rumble. Yes.
The chat is telling us it's Rumble.
Oh, okay.
Well, this guy that made the Level trilogy, and based on the other stuff he does, I honestly think that it's like clickbait stuff. That you do these hour-long documentaries that you edit together with existing footage. You have a narrator kind of read some shit over it, and then you throw it up on YouTube. And if you can keep your monetization, it generates income right there. You don't got to print DVDs. You don't got to do any kind of distribution deal with anybody. And as long as you're doing these hot button topics, like I said, COVID-19, George Floyd, flat Earth, it's like there's too much of a through line through that says like, okay, you're trying to cash in on people that watch stuff in bed in the middle of the night because they can't sleep.
That actually sounds like 3 great random topics to create an adventure around. Flat Earthers, COVID-19, and George Floyd.
James, I am hereby challenging you to create a top secret adventure involving those 3 subjects.
Yeah, I won't. I'll be canceled pretty quickly, but that's so all right. So we've been actually kind of chatting about this for an hour, but I think it was actually this has been a good session, a good show. Just kind of, and this is what I kind of want to lead us more towards, is kind of more of a talk show, casual thing. So as we go, if people are watching and they say, hey, I have, maybe here's some suggestions of what you should do. Honestly, I just really love this conversation about, NASA and flat Earth. That I think that's probably beyond the D&D thing. That was actually my favorite part of the evening. So, but anyway, it is time for us to, I didn't even get to play any of my other cheesy video openers. That's what I do during the week, is I'm sitting there going, we need a bumper for, I don't know, something, and then I'll just go and create them, even though they're probably not needed. But anyway, let me go ahead and start the countdown to the evening. So that was great. So thanks everybody. It was actually, I think, a very useful show. I mean, probably people in the beginning were looking at the AD&D stuff and just kind of going, okay, James, you can be quiet now. I mean, I was just sitting there gushing, and I realized that I'm just sitting there blabbing on about this, grabbing stuff off my shelf, going, look at this.
Look at my baby pictures.
Yeah. But anyway, let's go ahead and do a final shout out. So Terry.
Hi, I'm Terry Mixon, NASA mole and possible conspirator.
All right. Well, that's fun. Pat?
You can find me on Twitter, Dr. X2112. Podcast on Wednesdays, we talk weird and Y2K movies.
All right, I have to stop here. And Terry, with the cat, you've now become the evil conspirator with the
right, Dr. Evil over there.
All right, Mike.
Hi, my name's Mike, avid gamer, and glad to be part of the conversation. Very entertaining.
Oh, good to have you. And JayCee here. You can find me on Twitter at Grindhouse Media. And I have my handle, the RPG Cultist, which is actually still alive. It's a WordPress blog that I created, that I was all kinds of intentions to write all kinds of great material. And what I ended up using is practicing AI article writers to see how they plan out. So if you go to the website, rpgcultist.com, you can read everything that I've made on an AI writer articles that make no sense or sound like the most drab thing ever, but I needed to get something up there. So that's where you can find me, Twitter or my blog. Anyway, I'd like to thank everyone who was with us tonight. So Daniel, Dana, Rachel, and whoever else has joined us. It's great. And again, give us a like. That kind of helps the algorithm push our stuff up a little bit. And, hopefully we'll maybe someday we'll get monetized and we can split the whole $5 between the 4 or 5 of us. Hey, candy bar at least on sale. Anyway, have a good night, and I'm about to go ahead and bring up the end stream. And